The border collie suddenly darted forward. His sharp eyes locked on a black suitcase sliding across the airport conveyor belt. Passengers screamed. Officers froze. For a moment, no one understood what was happening until the dog refused to back down. Growling with a low, intense fury his handler had never seen before. "Scout, leave it," Mike shouted, but the canine's instinct said otherwise. Something inside that suitcase was wrong. Dangerously wrong. As officers surrounded the scene, the air grew thick with tension. Then Scout barked again, sharper this time, his eyes fixed on the case like it was a bomb. Then the bomb squad arrived, the air thick with fear. When they finally unzipped the bag, no one was prepared for what they saw inside. It was not explosives. It was not drugs. It was something that made even the toughest officers step back in shock and left the entire airport completely silent. What Scout uncovered that day would expose a secret buried for years and reveal a truth darker than anyone imagined. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I am curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. Morning sunlight streamed through the tall glass walls of Terminal 4 at JFK, casting long reflections across the polished floors. The usual hum of travelers filled the air. Rolling suitcases, distant announcements, and the faint hiss of jet engines outside. Officer Mike Sullivan adjusted his cap as he walked beside his partner Scout, the airport's most trusted canine. The border collie's intelligent eyes scanned the crowd. Tail held low, steps light and confident. For most passengers, it was just another busy day. But for Mike, every patrol was a silent test. Every bag, every face, every sound could hide danger. "Easy, boy," he murmured, patting Scout's side. The dog's ears twitched at the familiar voice, then lowered as if acknowledging the command. They had worked together for 5 years, their bond unspoken yet absolute. As they moved through the baggage claim area, Scout sniffed along the conveyor belts. Alert but calm, officers greeted Mike with nods. "Morning, Sullivan, another day in paradise," one joked. Mike smiled faintly. "Let's hope it stays that way." Behind his calm tone lay the quiet awareness that paradise could change in seconds. Scout had saved countless lives before, detecting explosives, narcotics, and even a runaway suspect once hidden in cargo. Mike admired how effortlessly Scout blended intelligence with precision. Unlike most dogs, Scout did not just react. He thought. He could sense tension, deceit, and even fear. "He has got better instincts than most of us," Mike often told new recruits. And today, those instincts were unusually sharp. Scout's nose twitched at every suitcase sliding by, as if he were searching for something invisible. Mike checked the digital board overhead. Flight 218 from Madrid had just landed. More luggage began to roll out, a blur of black and grey cases. Scout's body tensed for a brief moment, then relaxed. Mike noticed, but did not comment. They had both learned to trust the process. Patience first, action later. The air smelled faintly of jet fuel and perfume, a mix of travel and tension. Scout paused again, his ears turning toward a row of new bags just entering the belt. Mike followed his gaze, sensing something subtle shift in his partner's body language. He frowned. "What is it, boy?" he whispered. Scout did not bark, just stared, muscles tensing slightly. To anyone else, it was just another patrol. But for Scout, something about this morning felt different. Something was coming. The hum of the conveyor belt echoed through the terminal, blending with the faint chatter of travelers waiting for their luggage. Mike's boots clicked steadily on the polished floor as he guided Scout along the perimeter, eyes scanning for anything out of place. Everything seemed ordinary until Scout stopped abruptly. The border collie's body went rigid. His ears stood tall, nose twitching rapidly. Mike halted, sensing the shift instantly. "What is it, boy?" he asked quietly, watching Scout lower his snout closer to the belt. The dog sniffed once, twice, then turned his head sharply, following an unseen trail that cut across the moving luggage. Mike frowned. Scout rarely behaved like this unless something was truly off. He gave the leash a gentle tug, but the canine refused to move. "Come on, Scout," he urged, but the dog growled softly, his intense gaze locked on the next batch of suitcases sliding onto the conveyor. Passengers nearby began to glance curiously at the pair. Officer Jackson, one of Mike's colleagues, noticed. "Everything good, Mike?" he called out. Mike nodded, though uncertainty flickered in his eyes. "Yeah, just, he is picking up something." Jackson raised a brow. "Probably a food spill or some perfume again." Mike gave a faint smile. "Maybe, but you know Scout, he does not false alarm." Scout circled once, nostrils flaring. His focus was intense, his muscles coiled. Mike's gut tightened. The dog had that look, the same one he had shown years ago. Moments before uncovering an explosive hidden in a shipment crate, Mike's hand unconsciously rested on his utility belt. Heart beginning to race, the conveyor belt rattled as another wave of luggage came through. Scout's head jerked toward a large grey suitcase near the front of the line. He moved closer, sniffing the air, his tail stiffened completely now, body poised in a low, focused crouch. "Scout," Mike said, his voice low. The canine did not respond. Instead, he stepped up onto the edge of the belt, sniffing the case with sharp, deliberate breaths. Then he let out a short, low bark, one that sent a chill down Mike's spine. The nearby officers exchanged glances. Jackson walked closer. "You think it is something serious?" Mike's gaze stayed on Scout. "When he is like this," he said. "Yeah, it is serious." Scout growled softly again, his teeth slightly bared. Whatever scent he had caught was not normal. Something about it disturbed him deeply. The dog's instinct screamed danger and his body language said one thing loud and clear. "Do not ignore this." Mike's pulse quickened. He knew they were about to find out why Scout could not calm down. And whatever it was not going to be ordinary. The conveyor belt hummed steadily as luggage after luggage rolled past. Most of them were identical. Black, grey, navy blue blending into a monotonous stream. But Scout's attention was locked on one particular suitcase. A large dark grey hard case with a silver tag. It moved slowly toward the pickup area, and every foot it took seemed to heighten the tension in the air. Mike watched carefully. "Scout, what is it?" he whispered again. Crouching beside his partner, the dog's hackles were raised now, ears forward, nose twitching rapidly. He sniffed the air, then let out another low growl that made the nearby passengers take an uneasy step back. Officer Jackson walked over, curious. "He has never been this tense before," he muttered. Mike nodded, his hand tightening on the leash. "No, and I have seen him face bombs without flinching. Something is different this time." The grey suitcase reached the edge of the belt and started its return loop. Scout barked sharply, lunging toward it. Mike barely managed to hold him back. Gasps rippled through the crowd as people began recording with their phones. "Sir, please step back," another officer shouted, raising a hand to control the growing circle of onlookers. Scout would not stop barking now. Each bark echoed across the hall, sharp and commanding. Mike tried again. "Scout, heel," but the dog's instincts had taken over. His eyes were locked on the case, body tense as a coiled spring. The suitcase passed by again. This time, Scout's growl deepened, and he lunged forward, front paws landing squarely on the conveyor belt. "Scout, no!" Mike's voice carried authority, but even he could feel the urgency in the dog's actions. Something inside that suitcase was triggering every alarm in Scout's mind. Jackson approached cautiously, hand resting on his sidearm. "Could be chemical residue," he said, "maybe explosives from a connecting flight." Mike shook his head. "Scout does not false read chemicals. He is reacting to something alive." The words hung heavy in the air. "Alive?" Jackson echoed, frowning. Scout barked again, louder this time, then bit the side of the suitcase. His teeth clamped down hard on the fabric lining, refusing to release. The conveyor belt jerked as passengers gasped, some backing away while others filmed in stunned silence. "Call the supervisor," Mike shouted, struggling to pull Scout away. "Get the area cleared now." Alarms blared as the airport security system automatically triggered lockdown protocols. A red strobe light began flashing across the baggage hall. Officers hurried to form a perimeter, ushering passengers away from the scene. Mike could feel Scout trembling, not from fear, but from fierce determination. The dog's jaw remained locked on the suitcase. Growling between clenched teeth, Jackson glanced around nervously. "What is in there, Mike?" Mike stared at the trembling case, his pulse thundering in his ears. "I do not know," he said quietly, "but Scout does, and for the first time in years." Mike felt a chill crawl up his spine. Whatever was inside that suitcase, it was not ordinary luggage. "Get that dog off the belt," shouted Captain Miller, her voice cutting through the chaos. Alarms blared overhead, red warning lights spinning across the metal walls. Passengers had already been escorted back, some whispering anxiously, others holding up their phones to record. The air felt electric, thick with confusion, fear, and disbelief. Mike pulled hard on Scout's leash, but the K9 refused to release his bite. His powerful jaw stayed locked on the grey suitcase, the fabric now torn where his teeth had sunk in. "Scout, heel," Mike commanded again, louder this time, but Scout growled deeply, refusing to obey. His instincts screamed louder than any order. A team of armed airport security officers rushed in, led by a stern supervisor, Captain Jessica Miller. "What the hell is going on here?" she demanded. Mike straightened quickly. "Ma'am, my canine detected something inside this bag. He has never been this aggressive unless it is serious." Miller glanced at the snarling dog and then at the trembling suitcase. Serious or not, this is against protocol. He could damage evidence. She motioned for the bomb squad officer standing nearby. Prepare containment. Scout's growl deepened, vibrating through the floor. Mike tightened his grip, voice calm but urgent. Captain, with respect, if I pull him off now, whatever is in there might go off or escape. Look at him, he is not confused. He is protecting us. The room fell into tense silence. Even the hum of the conveyor belt seemed to fade as everyone's attention locked onto the dog. Scout's breathing was heavy, his eyes sharp, fixed on the suitcase like it was alive. The bomb technician crouched beside the conveyor, moving slowly. We will need to scan it first, he said, carefully extending a portable detector toward the case. Scout barked sharply, startling everyone. The technician froze mid-motion. Jesus, he is guarding it like there is something dangerous inside. Miller looked at Mike. Control your dog or I will have to remove both of you. Mike's jaw tightened. Ma'am, with all due respect, if Scout says it is not safe, I trust him over any machine. That defiance caught Miller off guard. But before she could respond, Scout suddenly released the suitcase, only to bark again, stepping between the case and the nearest officer, blocking anyone from approaching. The suitcase shifted slightly on the belt. A faint thump echoed from inside. Everyone froze. Mike's heart pounded. Did anyone else hear that? The technician's face went pale. Whatever is in there, it just moved. The sudden thump inside the suitcase froze everyone in place. For a moment, even the alarm seemed quieter, as if the entire airport held its breath. Passengers stood behind the security line, wide-eyed, whispering nervously. The red warning lights pulsed across their faces, casting flashes of fear and confusion. A child started to cry, and his mother quickly covered his ears. Mike did not move. His hand hovered near his holster, but his eyes stayed on Scout. The border collie's stance was rigid, muscles taut, a deep rumble vibrating in his chest. He was not attacking anymore. He was guarding, protecting. Every hair along his spine stood upright. Captain Miller raised a trembling hand. Everyone stay back, no sudden movements. Her voice cracked slightly as she turned to Mike. Could that sound have come from a device? Mike shook his head slowly. I do not think so. Scout would not act like this over machinery. He glanced down at his partner. He is sensing life, or something he believes is alive. The bomb technician swallowed hard. Eyes on the case. We have got to open it carefully. If it is biological, or worse, trapped, we need to know now. Scout began pacing in front of the conveyor belt, whining softly between growls. The sight of such a disciplined K9 showing distress unsettled even the most seasoned officers. Mike could feel the tension radiating off his partner like heat. Easy, boy, he whispered, crouching beside him. We will figure it out. Across the terminal, a man whispered, Is it a bomb? Another muttered, Maybe it is an animal. Dozens of voices overlapped in anxious murmurs until Miller barked. Silence. The word cut through the air like a blade. The noise died instantly. Only the faint clicking of the conveyor belt remained. The technician adjusted his gloves and crouched closer to the bag. Thermal readings are unstable, he said, glancing at the handheld monitor. There is movement. Small, irregular, and warm. Scout barked sharply, causing the man to flinch. Mike's heart thudded in his chest. Back away, he said softly. Let's not push him. Miller's jaw tightened. Mike, this is a civilian area. If there is danger, I know, he interrupted, his voice steady, but if we rush this, we might set off something worse. Look at Scout, he is warning us for a reason. The captain hesitated, torn between protocol and instinct. And then it happened. The suitcase jerked again, louder this time. Gasps rippled through the terminal. A single eerie noise followed. A faint scratching sound from inside. Scout let out a bark that echoed through the hall, commanding silence once more. The crowd went dead still. Every heartbeat seemed louder than the alarms. Whatever was inside that suitcase was alive, and about to reveal itself. The scratching from inside the suitcase sent a shiver through the room. In seconds, Captain Miller grabbed her radio. Code yellow in baggage sector B. Evacuate remaining civilians and call the bomb unit now. Her voice carried authority, but the tremor beneath it betrayed the fear no one dared admit. Red lights pulsed faster. Loudspeakers echoed with urgent announcements. All passengers, please move toward the nearest exit. People hurried away, leaving their luggage behind, some glancing back over their shoulders as security formed a tight perimeter. Mike stayed near the conveyor belt, his hand firm on Scout's collar. The border collie's breathing was fast, his eyes locked on the suitcase like a predator guarding prey. Mike knelt beside him. You did good, buddy. Hold on, he whispered, though he was not sure who he was trying to reassure. Scout or himself. Within moments, a team of bomb squad technicians entered in heavy gear, faces hidden behind visors. The leader gave a curt nod. Everyone clear the zone. They rolled a thick black containment shield toward the conveyor belt, its wheels squeaking against the floor. Scout's low growl accompanied every inch of movement. "Keep him steady," Mike said quietly as the bomb team positioned themselves. "No sudden approach. He does not trust that bag." The technician crouched, waving a handheld scanner slowly over the suitcase. The machine beeped in uneven pulses. No clear explosive signal, but an unusual organic trace. "It is warm," the technician muttered. "Whatever is inside, it is alive." Miller's brow furrowed. "Alive as in human? Negative. Too small." Scout barked sharply, making everyone flinch. His tail was straight, his fur bristling. Mike's instincts screamed along with the dog's reaction. "Back up," he ordered. "He is sensing movement again." The technician glanced at the scanner. Thermal readings spiking. Something is moving fast. The next sound made everyone's blood run cold. A faint, muffled whine came from inside the suitcase. Fragile, desperate. It was not mechanical. "It is alive," Miller whispered. "Oh my God," Scout whimpered, pressing closer to the bag as if trying to comfort whatever was trapped inside. Mike's pulse thundered. "We are not dealing with explosives," he said hoarsely. "We are dealing with a living being." For a long moment, no one spoke. Even the alarm seemed to fade into the background hum of dread. The technician exhaled shakily. "Then what is the protocol for that?" Mike's eyes stayed locked on the suitcase. "There is not one," he said quietly. "We open it, carefully." The terminal had been cleared now. Only flashing lights and the muffled voices of officers filled the space. The grey suitcase sat motionless on the conveyor belt, its torn fabric marked by Scout's teeth. Mike stood just a few feet away, one hand gripping the leash, the other resting on his sidearm. The air felt heavy, like the calm before a storm. Captain Miller was on the radio again, her voice sharp. "We are escalating to Containment Priority 1. If we cannot confirm it is safe, we detonate the case remotely." Mike's eyes widened. "Detonate? Captain, you cannot. There is something alive in there." Miller turned, her expression hard. "You think there is something alive? We do not take chances with hundreds of passengers' lives at stake." Scout growled low, stepping in front of the suitcase as if he understood the words. His gaze stayed locked on Miller. Protective, defiant. Mike's heart pounded. He had seen Scout fearless in front of gunfire. But this was different. The dog was not reacting to a threat. He was guarding life. "Captain," Mike said, his voice calmer but firm. "I have been with Scout for 5 years. He has never been wrong. If we blow that case, we might kill something innocent or destroy the only lead we have got." The room went silent except for the hum of the conveyor motor. Miller hesitated, her jaw tightening. "You are out of line." "Officer, maybe," Mike replied, taking a slow breath. "But you asked for a handler with instinct. This is mine." Scout barked once, sharp and commanding, echoing through the empty terminal. It felt almost like he was backing Mike's words. The bomb technician exchanged a glance with Miller. "Ma'am, with respect," he said, "if the K9 is reading movement and body heat, we should verify before we act. A premature detonation could compromise evidence." Miller exhaled, weighing the risk. Every second dragged like an hour. Finally, she nodded reluctantly. "Fine, you have got 5 minutes. If we cannot confirm life, we follow procedure." Mike crouched beside Scout, resting a hand on his fur. "You heard her, buddy. We have got 5 minutes to prove you are right." Scout pressed his head against Mike's arm, then turned back to the suitcase. Nose twitching, his tail lifted slightly, a signal Mike recognized. Something was stirring again. The technician leaned closer with the handheld scanner. The monitor flickered, then spiked. The color indicator turned from blue to deep orange. Movement confirmed. It is breathing." Miller froze. Breathing? Before anyone could react, the suitcase jolted again, a faint, desperate cry emerging from within. Scout whined, pressing his paw gently against the torn fabric. Mike's throat tightened. "Captain, whatever is in there, it is alive and terrified." The hum of machinery filled the silence as the bomb squad prepared their equipment. The grey suitcase sat beneath harsh fluorescent light, scarred with teeth marks and faint traces of dirt from Scout's paws. Every eye in the terminal was locked on it. The tension was so thick it could almost be heard. The sound of held breaths, of hearts pounding in unison. "Thermal is still active," said the lead technician, peering at the monitor. "Temperature is rising again, 38 degrees Celsius. That is body heat." Captain Miller leaned closer. "Human?" He shook his head. "Too small. Definitely not human." Scout stood beside the suitcase, tail stiff, nostrils flaring. His breathing was heavy but controlled. His eyes were sharp, as if he were guarding something sacred. Mike knelt beside him, his voice barely above a whisper. "It is okay, boy. We are right here." The technician nodded to his partner. Prepare manual override. A small robotic arm extended from the scanning device, gently pressing against the suitcase's latch. The sound of the metal click echoed like thunder in the still air. Scout growled immediately, stepping forward, forcing Mike to tighten the leash. Easy, Scout, let him work. A faint noise came from inside again. A soft, trembling whimper. Everyone froze. Even the officers who had seen everything in their careers exchanged uneasy glances. Miller whispered, "That is crying, is not it?" The bomb technician hesitated, his gloved hand hovering above the lock. "Ma'am, whatever is in here, it is scared." Mike felt his chest tighten. He remembered Scout's first rescue operation years ago. A child trapped under debris. The same desperate sound guiding them to life. This felt eerily similar. "Proceed carefully," Miller said finally. "No sudden movements." The technician nodded. With precision, he twisted the latch. The locks released with a sharp metallic snap. Scout barked once, stepping back slightly, his body coiled and ready. The lid lifted inch by inch. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Inside, wrapped in layers of fabric, was a small bundle, moving. The technician reached in slowly and pulled back a blanket. A tiny, weak puppy blinked up at them, trembling, its fur matted and dirty. It whimpered softly, curling into itself. Scout let out a low whine, ears drooping, eyes softening instantly. "Oh my God," Miller murmured, "someone stuffed a live animal in there." Mike's relief was short-lived. As the technician gently lifted the puppy out, something else caught his eye. A second layer beneath the blanket. He frowned, tugging it aside. Hidden under the lining were dozens of tiny sealed packets and a black electronic device blinking faintly. His voice trembled as he said, "Captain, we have got a lot more than a puppy here." Scout growled again, confirming it. Whatever this was, it was not just cruelty. It was crime. The moment the bomb technician pulled back the remaining layer, silence gripped the terminal once again. The blinking light beneath the blanket was not just any device. It was a small transmitter attached to a cluster of sealed plastic tubes filled with a strange crystalline substance. The technician froze mid-motion, his breathing audible through his mask. "Captain," he whispered, his voice tense, "this is not a bomb. But it is something bad. Really bad." Miller stepped forward cautiously. "Define bad." The technician swallowed hard. "Synthetic narcotics. High grade. Whoever did this used the puppy to mask the scent." Gasps erupted from the nearby officers. Even Mike, who had seen his share of dark smuggling cases, felt sick. He looked down at the trembling puppy in the medic's hands, its ribs visible through its thin fur, eyes pleading for comfort. "They used him to hide this," he said under his breath, his tone trembling between anger and disbelief. Scout growled softly, pacing in circles around the suitcase. His instincts had been right all along. He had sensed life and danger. He approached the medic holding the puppy and sniffed gently at its paw, as if checking to make sure it was still alive. Then he turned and barked sharply toward the open suitcase again. Tail rigid, Mike crouched beside the K9, his jaw tight. "You did good, boy," he murmured. "Real good." The technician carefully removed one of the plastic packets and examined it under the light. "These are not standard narcotics," he said. "They are laced with a microchip compound. Some kind of tracking tech. Whoever packed this was not just smuggling drugs. They were sending a signal." Miller leaned closer. "A signal to who?" He pointed to the blinking transmitter. "This device is still active. It is pinging every 30 seconds. If we had not stopped it here, someone would have picked it up at the next airport." Mike's eyes widened. "So, the dog did not just save this puppy. He stopped an entire operation. And possibly a terror link." Miller nodded grimly. "We will need Homeland on this now." One of the bomb squad officers stepped forward with a scanner. "Ma'am, the chip frequency matches a known smuggling network we have been tracking across Europe and Asia. They have been hiding contraband in living animals. It is brutal and smart. They knew customs scanners would not pick up organic life as a threat." The words hit like a punch. Mike clenched his fists, glancing again at the puppy, now wrapped in a warm towel. "All this, and they used something innocent to do it." The medic looked up. "He is dehydrated but stable. Whoever packed him must have done it just hours before the flight." Miller's face hardened. "Then the handler is still nearby." Scout barked once, loud, clear, focused. His nose turned toward the main exit of the baggage hall, nostrils flaring. Mike followed his gaze, adrenaline rushing through him. "You have got something, boy?" Scout barked again, pulling at the leash. The signal light on the transmitter blinked in sync, almost like a beacon. Mike's instinct surged. He is tracking the scent. The person who packed that bag is still in this airport. Miller snapped into action. "Lock all exits. Run surveillance feeds. Nobody leaves this terminal." The bomb technician stepped back, sealing the suitcase inside a containment crate. The little puppy whimpered softly. curling against the medic's arm. Scout whined in response, as if promising he would finish what he started. Mike tightened his grip on the leash. "Let's go, partner. Time to find who did this." The calm, sterile airport suddenly became a hunting ground, and Scout was leading the chase. Scout's paws struck the tile floor in a sharp rhythm as he pulled Mike toward the security corridor. His nose worked furiously, tracing the invisible trail that wound through the maze of luggage, passengers, and metal detectors. The airport lights glinted in his focused eyes. Every movement was instinct, every bark a signal. He was on the scent of something big. Captain Miller and 2 other officers followed close behind, weapons drawn but lowered. "Control is locking exits," she reported. "We have sealed Terminal C and D. Whoever packed that bag is still in the building." Mike nodded, never taking his eyes off Scout. "Then let's trust him to find them." The K9 led them through a restricted area, past the baggage tunnels where conveyor belts hummed like veins beneath the airport's body. The deeper they went, the colder it became. The air smelled of oil, rubber, and a faint chemical residue, a trace of whatever had been in that suitcase. Suddenly, Scout stopped, his head turned sharply toward a stack of unattended cargo crates. He growled low, then barked twice, his alert signal. Mike froze. "He has got something." Miller motioned for the squad to spread out. One officer flipped a flashlight toward the crates. The beam caught movement, a shadow slipping behind the containers. "Freeze!" Miller barked. A woman burst from cover, sprinting toward an emergency exit. Mike lunged forward, unhooking Scout's leash. "Go!" The border collie shot forward like a missile. His paws barely touched the floor as he closed the distance. The woman tried to shove open the metal door, but Scout leaped, tackling her arm with just enough force to knock her down. She screamed, scrambling back as Mike caught up and pulled Scout to heel. Miller moved in fast, cuffing the woman. "You picked the wrong flight to run," she said coldly. The suspect's breath came in ragged gasps. "You do not understand," she hissed. "It was not supposed to happen here." Mike crouched beside her. "What was not?" The woman's eyes darted toward the suitcase, now sealed in the bomb unit's containment crate nearby. The transmitter. It was not just drugs. They were testing something new. Miller frowned. "Testing what?" The woman hesitated, then whispered, "Smuggling routes for Biotech." The puppy was the decoy. The real cargo was the microchip compound. It contains genetic material. They were trying to send it through without detection. The room fell silent. Even the hum of machinery seemed to stop. Mike's stomach twisted. "You are saying that stuff was biological?" The woman nodded. "A prototype. They use organic hosts to hide it. Living animals. It transmits data remotely, even from inside a body." Miller exchanged a horrified look with Mike. "That is not just smuggling," she said softly. "That is experimentation." The woman lowered her head. "You do not know who you are dealing with." Scout growled again, standing guard beside Mike, eyes locked on her like he could sense every lie. Miller radioed command. "We need a biohazard response team at Sector B immediately. And quarantine the evidence." Mike looked down at Scout, whose chest rose and fell steadily. "You saved a lot more than lives today, buddy," he whispered. "You stopped something we cannot even begin to understand." Scout's tail gave a single, slow wag. The danger was not over, but they had uncovered a truth darker than any of them had imagined. By the time the airport returned to partial operation, the command center was alive with activity. Dozens of monitors displayed footage from every camera in Terminal 4. Agents from Customs, Homeland Security and airport police crowded around, replaying the same few minutes over and over. The grey suitcase being dropped off at the check-in counter. Mike stood behind them with Scout by his side. The dog's tail flicked restlessly. He could feel his handler's tension. On one of the screens, a woman in a long beige coat appeared, face hidden behind sunglasses, head down, walking quickly. She placed the suitcase on the belt, glanced around once, then vanished into the crowd. "That is her," Mike said quietly. The suspect Scout cornered near the cargo bay. Miller folded her arms. "Run facial recognition." A technician typed rapidly, zooming in on the footage. Within seconds, the database matched her photo. Identified, Anya Petrova, dual citizenship, flagged twice for cross-border trafficking, but never arrested. He paused. "Interpol has been looking for her." Miller's eyes narrowed. "So, this was not a one-time drop. She is part of something organized." Mike leaned closer to the screen. "Zoom in on her left wrist." The image sharpened. A small tattoo of a geometric symbol. "Faint, but visible. That is not decorative," he said. "I have seen that before in a Europol briefing. It is the emblem of Project Hydra. A black market biotech ring." The room went still. The lead agent muttered, "They have been smuggling experimental materials. Viral strains, DNA chips, even cloned tissue, always through living hosts." Mike's jaw clenched. That is why Scout went insane. He did not just smell narcotics or fear. He smelled biology, fear, and sickness all at once. Miller turned toward the medical officer standing nearby. Status on the puppy. The vet, still in her scrubs, replied softly, stable, but there is something implanted near its shoulder. A tiny transmitter, same frequency as the device in the suitcase. It was not meant for tracking drugs. It was monitoring vital signs. Gasps filled the room. Mike exhaled slowly, realization dawning. They were testing how long an animal could survive transport while carrying the biochip. The vet nodded grimly. Exactly. That puppy was not a decoy. It was the experiment. Miller stared at the screen one more time, watching the woman vanish into the crowd. Get her transfer records, flight logs, every passenger she is connected to. If this network is moving through airports, we shut it down here and now. Mike placed a steadying hand on Scout's neck. You ready, partner? Scout looked up, eyes bright, tail flicking once in quiet affirmation. Whatever was coming next, they both knew this was no longer a case of airport security. It was a war against something far darker. The radio crackled to life as a voice shouted. Suspect Anya Petrova spotted leaving the lower parking structure. Gate C exit. The command center erupted into motion. Mike grabbed Scout's leash, his pulse spiking. Come on, partner, he said, already sprinting toward the stairwell. The border collie barked once in response and surged ahead, nails scraping the concrete as they descended into the echoing garage. The air below was thick with exhaust and the hum of engines. Red and white lights flickered across rows of cars. Somewhere in that maze of shadows, a woman was running for her freedom. Mike's radio buzzed again. Unit 3 in pursuit. Suspect heading northbound between pillars 7 and 10. Copy that, Mike replied, breath steadying as adrenaline sharpened his focus. He released Scout's leash. Track her, boy, go. Scout darted forward like a missile. Nose to the ground, tail rigid. His growl echoed off the concrete walls as he followed the invisible trail of fear and perfume. Mike sprinted after him, gun holstered but hand ready. The sound of footsteps ahead grew louder, a sharp rhythm of panic against the smooth floor. Then a figure burst into view between two parked SUVs. Anya Petrova, her coat flared behind her as she clutched a small black device. The same blinking transmitter they had found earlier. She looked over her shoulder, eyes wild. When she saw Scout closing in, she threw a duffel bag across the floor, hoping to slow him down. Scout leaped clean over it, snarling, his instincts locked onto her scent. Mike shouted, "Stop, police, K9, do not make me release him again." But Anya did not stop. She bolted toward a maintenance elevator, slamming the call button repeatedly. The doors began to slide open just as Scout lunged. He grabbed the hem of her coat, yanking her backward with a powerful pull. She fell hard, the device skidding from her hand and clattering across the floor. Mike reached him seconds later, gun drawn. "It is over, Anya, do not move." She glared up, breath ragged. "You think you stopped it? That chip, there are hundreds more. You cannot stop evolution." Mike kicked the device away, securing her wrists with cuffs. "Maybe not," he said, "but you are done hurting anything innocent again." Miller's voice crackled through the radio. "Suspect in custody?" "Affirmative," Mike replied, exhaling hard. He looked down at Scout, who was sitting beside him, panting but proud. "And we have got her alive." Scout wagged his tail once, eyes gleaming in the dim light. Around them, officers flooded the area, weapons drawn, scanning every vehicle. The blinking transmitter was sealed in a containment bag. As they led Anya away, she whispered coldly, "You have no idea what is coming." Mike glanced at Scout, who growled low as if answering her threat. "We will be ready," he murmured, and as they stepped out of the dark parking garage into the flashing blue lights above, Mike knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning of something far bigger. By dawn, the airport was a battlefield of flashing cameras and reporters swarming behind barricades. The once silent terminal now buzzed with news crews broadcasting live updates. Screens across the country lit up with the same headline, "Hero Police Dog Exposes International Biotech Smuggling Operation." Mike stood near the arrivals gate, his uniform stained with dust and adrenaline. Scout sat obediently beside him. The border collie's harness gleamed under the camera lights. Police K9, stitched proudly across the front. For Scout, it was just another mission completed. For everyone else, it was a miracle. "Officer Sullivan, can we get a statement?" a reporter called out. Microphone raised high. Mike hesitated, uncomfortable in the spotlight. "My partner deserves the credit," he said simply, resting a hand on Scout's neck. He followed his instincts when the rest of us doubted them. Without him, a lot of lives could have been lost today. Scout lifted his head as if understanding the praise. A murmur of applause rippled through the crowd. Cameras flashed, Someone shouted, "Smile, hero." Mike chuckled softly. "He does not do smiles," he said, "just justice." Captain Miller approached, clipboard in hand. "You have started a storm. Sullivan, Homeland is confirming Scout's detection saved multiple international flights. The intel from Anya Petrova led to 2 more arrests in Frankfurt and Madrid. You did not just stop a crime. You stopped a network." Mike nodded, a weary but proud smile tugging at his lips. "All because one dog refused to let go of a suitcase." Miller smirked. "You know, he might be more famous than you by noon." By mid-morning, that prediction came true. News anchors replayed footage of Scout lunging at the grey suitcase, the dramatic scene looping across every major channel. Social media flooded with hashtags, #Herrick9Scout, #Angel, #TrustYourDog. Comments poured in from around the world. "That dog deserves a medal. I cannot stop crying. Protect Scout at all costs." Mike leaned against a pillar, watching the chaos unfold. For once, the noise did not bother him. Scout sat close, tail brushing the floor in a quiet rhythm. "Guess you are famous now, partner," Mike murmured. Scout turned, giving him a calm, steady look, as if to say fame did not matter. Only duty did. In that moment, surrounded by flashing lights and endless questions, Mike realized something profound. It was not just about what Scout had found. It was about what he represented. Loyalty, courage, and the instinct to protect life. Even when humans hesitated, and as reporters clamored for more, Scout simply yawned, laid down beside his handler, and closed his eyes. The hero, finally resting. The chaos of the airport had finally quieted. The flashing lights were gone. The crowds dispersed, and for the first time in hours, the baggage terminal felt calm again. A soft evening glow filtered through the tall glass panels, casting long golden streaks across the floor. Mike stood in the quiet medical bay, still in uniform, fatigue shadowing his face. Beside him sat Scout, alert but calmer now, his deep brown eyes following every movement. Across the room, a veterinarian gently placed the rescued puppy on a soft blanket. Its tiny chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm. A miracle, after all it had endured. "He is responding well," the vet said, smiling faintly, "dehydrated and weak, but strong enough to fight. He is a survivor, just like your partner." Mike's gaze softened. "Can we let him meet?" The vet nodded. Carefully, she carried the small bundle over and set the puppy down in front of Scout. The little one looked up uncertainly, trembling for a moment before inching closer. Scout sniffed the air, then leaned forward, giving a slow, gentle nudge with his nose. It was a simple gesture, but in that quiet room, it felt monumental. The puppy let out a faint whimper, and Scout responded with a soft, comforting rumble deep in his chest. He laid his head down beside the tiny dog, as if promising silently that no harm would ever come to it again. Mike felt his throat tighten. "You saved him, buddy," he whispered. "You knew before any of us did." The vet smiled warmly. "Dogs sense things we never can. Danger, fear, even innocence. It is why they save us, even when we do not understand why." Scout blinked slowly, tail brushing the floor. The puppy nestled closer against his fur, its small body finally relaxing. The sight drew quiet tears from one of the nurses nearby. Miller stepped into the room, arms folded, but her expression soft. "Looks like our hero earned himself a promotion," she said. Mike chuckled. "Forget promotion, he just wants a nap." Miller smiled, glancing at the 2 dogs. "Maybe he has found himself a new recruit." The puppy yawned, pressing its tiny paw against Scout's muzzle. Scout stayed perfectly still, patient and gentle. Mike knelt down, rubbing his partner's ear. "You did good, Scout. You did not just save lives today. You gave one back." Outside, the last rays of sunset painted the terminal in gold. Inside, a battered puppy slept beside a weary hero. And for the first time all day, peace returned to the airport. Night had settled over the city by the time Mike stepped outside the airport. The terminal lights glowed softly against the dark sky, their reflections dancing across the wet pavement. The chaos of the day had finally faded, replaced by a calm stillness that carried its own weight of relief. Scout walked beside him, tired but proud, his steps slow and steady. The air smelled of rain and jet fuel, ordinary scents that somehow felt different now, like reminders of the lives they had touched. Mike paused near the exit, resting a hand on Scout's shoulder. "We did good today," he said quietly. "Real good." Scout looked up at him, tail giving a faint wag. There were no words needed between them. The bond they shared went deeper than commands or medals. It was trust, the kind that could only be built through years of standing side by side in danger. Mike thought of the frightened puppy, now safe in a foster home, the passengers who had no idea how close they came to disaster, and the headlines that would soon fade into tomorrow's noise. But some things would remain. A hero's instinct, a dog's unshakable loyalty, a reminder that sometimes courage wears fur and walks on four legs. Captain Miller's voice echoed faintly from behind. "You heading home, Sullivan?" Mike smiled. "Yeah, I think we both earned it." As they stepped into the parking lot, the night breeze carried the distant sound of departing planes, engines roaring like the heartbeat of the world moving on. Mike opened the door of his patrol vehicle and Scout climbed in. Curling up on the seat with a tired sigh, Mark looked out across the runway one last time. "You know," he said softly, "some heroes chase glory, but you just chase the truth." Scout blinked, eyes half closed. Content. The camera slowly zooms out, the lights of the airport fading behind them. Two silhouettes framed against the glow of the horizon. Not all heroes wear badges or uniforms. Some simply listen to instincts that the rest of us ignore. Scout did not just save lives that day. He reminded the world that loyalty, courage, and love still exist, even in the most unexpected places.